Hi, Kayla. Hi, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
We're pretty giggly.
Yeah. Sorry. If you guys could just be a fly in the wall as we're recording these things, you'd probably die laughing. So welcome back to our study through the Psalms. If you haven't had a chance yet to read Psalm 5, I highly recommend that you pause this video, take a few moments to read it. Once you've read it, come back and pick up right here where we kind of leave off, because I'm telling you what, you don't want to miss reading this psalm. So, Lauren, I don't know if you've heard this or not, if this is something that has been, common knowledge to you, or when you figured this out. But since I've been a Christian, I've always heard that the Bible is about Jesus from beginning to end. It has nothing to do with me. It's all about Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. That the scriptures, like Old Testament scriptures and even the New Testament scriptures, are, written by people like David or Paul or people like that who are going through those things at that time, but it's all pointing to Jesus. Mm-hmm. And I think this psalm, as well as 1, 2, 3, and 4 that we've already done, kind of, shed light on that truth. Mm-hmm. So if you don't mind, could you go ahead and read verses 1 through 3 for me in Psalm 5?
All right, sure. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my groaning. Give attention to the sound of my cry, my King and my God, for to you do I pray. O Lord, in the morning you hear my voice. In the morning I prepare a sacrifice for you and watch.
So in the first 3 verses, I feel like there's a lot of information there that is super relatable to us as Christians today. We see that the psalmist David is in anguish and is crying out to the Lord, just like he did in Psalm 3. And even like what you had on last week in Psalm 4, where he's crying out to the Lord on behalf of these people, Mm-hmm. And so it makes me think about how we talked about in Psalm 3. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it. But how we talked about in Psalm 3, that Psalm 3 mirrors, Jesus. And how this makes me think of David crying out in anguish makes me also think of Jesus in the garden, when he's on his knees praying to the Father. Yeah. And so you kind of see that similarity right there again between David and Jesus. So what's really cool is not only is David crying out to the Lord in anguish, or as the scripture says, groaning, which when I hear that word groaning, I think of mumbling or complaining, you know. But we see that he makes it a priority to go to God. Mm-hmm. I think this is very important here. I think the words that are used in this psalm, where he says, in the morning you hear my voice, or in the morning I prepare a sacrifice, that though we don't have to go to the Lord in the morning, it is important to make the Lord a priority in your life. So I was reading this and I sat here and I imagined David waking up in the morning and the first thing he was doing was praying to the Lord, was going to the Lord with anything that was on his heart or on his mind, And I think about some goals that I've shared with you that I've set for myself, where I want to be able to spend time doing that first thing in the morning. And I see the importance of just starting the day off as the Lord is your priority. Yeah. I've always heard that your priorities show by what you do in your life. You know, if you put your kids first or your husband first or whatever, that shows. And so I really feel like David doing this first thing in the morning is showing us that the Lord is a priority in his life. And then we see that, this is really cool, okay? Then we see the word watch in there. Yeah. What does that make you think of? What do you think of when you hear the word watch?
When I read that, it makes me think of he prayed and now he's just waiting. Yeah. And just okay, what are you gonna do?
Absolutely, yes. You're absolutely right. At least that's what I think.
Yeah. That's what I think.
So it's like he's expecting God to answer him and waiting for him to do so. So he's expecting and waiting, right? It's like he trusts the Lord and believes that the Lord is going to answer his prayers. When I see that word watch, that's what I think of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, David knows that God's going to answer his prayers. He's watching for that to come true. And it made me think, like, man, I feel like sometimes I don't trust the Lord.
Mm.
And I feel like then that it's just this empty prayer. It's not that he doesn't hear all of our prayers, but do I really truly believe that the Lord would hear my cry and answer, or do I doubt him?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to kind of hear what your vision of what you think it means, or what it looks like to truly trust the Lord.
Thinking about this passage, like David just coming to the Lord in prayer during his hard time, during his groaning, I think that is a bit part of the trust. Like, we can go to a whole bunch of different people with our problems. I know I confide in my husband, and if I am hurting or annoyed even with something, I'm calling him, and I'm usually complaining, and he's gracious enough to answer the phone and listen. But when I'm really trusting the Lord, I feel like personally, like I do go to God with whatever's on my heart. And then I'm not very good at the watching part, but I do think that's part of trusting God, is that I would bring my requests, my complaint and groanings to the Lord, and then I wait and watch and see what he does, like expecting him to do something with that prayer.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
No, that makes total sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So one question, we'll have another question at the end, but one question I want you guys to think about is, are we praying and watching when we are going through certain situations? I think those actions, so scripture pretty much answers itself when it says, do we truly trust the Lord, right? Mm-hmm. Because we see the word praying and watching, and those actions are us continually, like, trusting God, putting our hope in what God's going to do and not what we're going to do. And if we're not praying and waiting in expectation that he's going to answer those prayers, then are we really trusting him? So I really want you guys to think about that. Like, as you have your prayer time and you're praying through things, is that true in your life? Are you really trusting that the Lord is going to answer your prayers? Or are you doubting that, he doesn't care or something, Can you think of a time, I'm sure you can, can you think of a time where you were, you cried out to the Lord and what that outcome was? Not necessarily what that time was, but what the outcome was of you crying out to the Lord.
Definitely have cried out to the Lord a few times in my short life. But just one example that came to my mind is when I was early in my faith, and I was in high school. Like I said before in the previous videos, very introverted, and making good, solid Christian friends was really kind of awkward and difficult for me. And I actually just put a lot of trust in people who were at my church. Well, sometimes they didn't act very godly in church. Not just in church, but in life in general. And it was hard, very extremely hard, to separate myself from that on purpose. Like making that conscious decision of like, okay, I'm not going to hang out with this person or this group because they're just not living the way I know God desires me to live. And I remember crying out to God about that because I felt alone. Like I felt really, really distant and alone. And because I cried out to him, he reminded me, I really believe it's because I actually went to him with that problem, that I was actually allowed to feel his comfort, because he was always with me and I wasn't alone. And some people might think, well, that's not enough. But when you really, I think, recognize that this is the God of the universe who created me and saved my soul, like that those are big factors to know, like, wow, that person is with me always, never leaving. And that was such a soothing thing for my soul during that time. It didn't mean I had friends right away either. I was
No.
still by
Yeah.
humanly
Yeah.
by myself. And so it was still something that I dealt with in the midst of that. So, did that answer your question?
It did.
I feel like I went on a rabbit trail a little.
No. It totally answered my question. And
okay.
it makes me think of similar things. And I feel like we, as Christians, all kind of face the same thing. When we first become a Christian and we see how people that we love and that we spend time with and we hang out with, not necessarily acting like Christians or not believers. I had a sweet friend when I became a believer. I had met my husband 6 months later, got saved, and the constant, he's brought you into a cult, or like, you're just being different. I'm like, yes, I'm being different because I found something to make me different.
Mm-hmm.
I found Jesus, and breaking that relationship off at the time, but not really praying for that person. And then when I started to pray for that person, I saw the Lord working and changing that person's heart, and that person's a believer and is such a sweet friend of mine now. We're probably not near as close as we used to be, but we now have back in common Jesus.
That's really cool.
Which is an awesome thing to hear. So I think about, I prayed for her for years, but was I really praying for her? No. When I really started to get down on my hands and knees and pray for her, she was going through things in her life with her husband and having issues with having babies and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, I'm really going to pray for you. And I know, God, that you're going to change this. And when I read this, I thought about, man, how awesome is it when you watch and wait?
Mm-hmm.
You can see the Lord work.
Yeah.
I want you to read, I know I asked you to read one thing already. If you don't mind, reading verses 9 through 12.
9 through 12?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, wait, yes, 9 through 12.
For there is no truth in their mouth. Their inmost self is destruction. Their throat is an open grave. They flatter with their tongue. Make them bear their guilt, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Because of the abundance of their transgressions, cast them out, for they have rebelled against you. But let all who take refuge in you rejoice. Let them ever sing for joy, and spread your protection over them, that those who love your name may exult in you. For you bless the righteous, O Lord. You cover him with favor as with a shield.
So that's just a sweet thing for us as believers to realize, because here David's, he's talking about people, and I think this just flows well with what happened in Psalm 4, right? I think he's crying out because of wrongdoers against him, and I think he's facing these things, right? But he knows. Scripture tells us, he sees that at the end of it all, God is going to be just. And I think that's true for us as believers. In life, we're going to face trials. We're going to face tribulations. We're going to face problems with people. We're going to face, just all kinds of negative things in life. But in the end, we will see the God of the earth, the God of the universe, be just.
Yeah.
And he'll bring justice to the wicked. It's not our place to do that. It's our place to cry out to him and trust that he is going to handle things. It's our job to trust that God's going to deal with their sin. And we just need to pray and watch.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was a lot. There's a lot in the Psalms. I got pretty excited. You can ask Lauren. I think I changed a lot of my stuff many times as I was reading through this. I'm like, Lauren, can you read this? Does this look like, whoa, I missed this? Or, so this is a good psalm. I would recommend going back and reading it over. Again, obviously we didn't dig deep and go into detail, and we could. I think we could have spent hours on, any psalm that we've done so far. But I do recommend just read it. And then I want you guys to think about a few things. I want you to think about a time where you were in anguish and went to the Lord. And then a time where you were in anguish and you didn't go to the Lord. And kind of compare the two and see the difference between those. What the outcome of was both of those. And if there's a time now that you feel like you're facing something, and you need us as ladies to cry out to the Lord on your behalf, like reach out, call us, let us know. So take a few minutes and kind of reflect on this psalm, reflect on the questions that were asked during this psalm, or during this devotional. Share what the Lord's doing in your lives. We'd love to hear it. We'd love to pray for you, pray with you, as just a body of ladies, and just excited to kind of see how the Lord's working in your lives. So we miss you, ladies, and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.